making it about others and what they think, feel, or has to be put aside for love to become rekindled and reborn. Yeah, the beautiful thing about feelings is really that they have nothing to do with our intellect. They are in and of themselves totally unique, totally valid. Like if feelings weren't valid, then something is inherently wrong with humans, because feelings are, you can't control them. Well, humans have, of course, learned how to control feelings by not feeling them. But that's a very limited way of dealing with our feelings, or actually feeling our feelings. And no matter how they show up, no matter what they are, and like we come out of a cultural programming where you will let a little bit of our feelings out. We'll shed a little bit of tears. But if we asked our body, please, I'm giving you permission to weep and to wail and to let out whatever emotions I am willing myself to open up, so that whatever is stuck here can actually become free. When we do that, we cannot say, well, but I'm only gonna do that when it's appropriate, and I'm only gonna do that when it's the right time, and I'm only gonna do that when I feel like it. And because we put so many conditions over our internal landscape in how it expresses itself. And when you are in a phase in your life, or you are in a rally for freedom for your own life, then making it about others and what they think, feel, or what other, just in general, other, has to be put aside for love to become rekindled and reborn. Because it has always been other that has been the reason why our own love got squelched, why our own love got diminished, why our own expression of who we are and what we feel and how that magical, mechanical system of feeling-based expression works in our own bodies, that has always been curtailed for other, or by other, or I better do it because of other. And other really needs to be put aside for love to become reborn, for love to come back in and wash itself clean, wash clean all those stains. And that may sound a little bit airy-fairy in a way, but when we really recognize and we feel into, what if I had a big grief release? What if I went somewhere and I actually willed myself open to feel freely, to feel rawly, to allow my tears to be, to allow my feelings to come up when they come up, to allow me to witness beauty in a flower and it brings me to tears? I am going to be willing for all of that. And when we make that choice and our feelings then come up, then all of a sudden we can start recognizing, like, oh my God, I'm in a shopping center. I'm seeing this little kid standing there with his mom, and he's just so adorable. And I just have all these emotions coming up. And then the program kicks in and says, yeah, but it's inappropriate to cry here. And so we have, because of others, so limited and really boxed in and downsized and put all sorts of rules around how love and how our feelings are allowed to express themselves. Meanwhile, our human nature is that we are feeling-based creatures. It's literally the foundation and the intrinsic makeup of who we are. And by being willing to put other to the side, we can really re-enable ourselves to prioritize feeling the feelings that we're feeling and not shutting them down. I'm having a cup of coffee with a friend over at so-and-so, and she's just yapping on about blah, 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 blah. And I'm actually feeling an emotional eruption coming up. And I may say, I'm going to go to the restroom for a bit. But really what I should probably do, I should just let the tears flow. Or the feeling is, I'm really complete here. I actually just want to sit on the grass on a park bench in the park and just really allow the grace of life and the beauty of creation to surround me. We have a chance each day when we are choosing to serve love, to serve our own emotional freedom, and really to honor and respect and value the feeling-based world that is real within us. When we choose to show up for that, the way that we will maybe exit conversations, or the way that we will put other to the side, is not by doing what was exactly done to us. We will not shove them to the side or say, all right, I'm done with this conversation. I want to sit on the park bench and admire creation. Well, we're not going to be admiring creation if that's the energy by which we put other to the side. It is a territory for many people that is not familiar, but you can only put other people to the side for love, with love. And when we're willing to show up for that, although it may be a little bit scary at first, what comes out of it is actually more connection, more richness, that when we had others still in place to be the priority around which we bend, and more of our feelings, and it's not appropriate to talk about that, and it's not appropriate to talk about that. For as long as we keep ourselves in that cage, we're not going to be able to show up for the next generation neither in the way that we know that we can. And yeah, it's something that I know for myself has been a huge part of my preoccupation and my limitations on how I show up in the world, because up until this day, I am still preoccupied with other. I'm still worried about what other people are thinking of me. And then as soon as I notice that worry, I was like, all right, well, where does that still fit in? Where does that still make sense? I'm willing to figure out how I can create freedom around that so that I don't have those feelings coming up. And the only way to create freedom around it is not just being brave and doing it anyways. It's about stepping into the space of, where does this come from in the first place? And how long have I been doing this? And being willing then on the timeline to recognize these patterns of how many years have I actually been stepping out of the opportunity to embody more of myself and making it about other, and slowing down my own self-embodiment and my own freedom because of somebody that I don't even know, that is just sitting 10 meters away from me, but I think they're looking at me. And so I've had a lot of those instances where I really recognized that what I call the third party has been mega influential in all of our lives through all the programming, whether it's government, whether it's police, whether it's the school headmaster, or those that were responsible for bringing us into the world of men at birth. There is always other that, because of inherent trauma that we're still carrying, is being prioritized. Because if other is happy, then I'm going to be safe. If other is pleased, then I'm going to be out of trouble. If other is made, is somehow served in a way that those relationships are good, then I can be. And it's that beautiful if this, then that. And it just doesn't work. If I stop myself from feeling my feelings in front of other people, then I will have a good relationship. And when we look at human nature and our feeling-based essence, where humans actually connect in the most profound and real ways is when we're authentic, when we're willing to show that we're feeling feelings, that we are having emotions, and that it's okay. And that is probably one of the biggest stepping stones to make in normalizing our feelings again, and really normalizing the upwelling of grief that we've been sitting on for decades, to normalize those eruptions and not do the same thing that was done to bring them about in the first place: the shaming, the rejection, the absence of presence, not wanting to feel any feelings, prematurely disconnecting from a feeling when it is just erupting. And so the encouragement is really to start prioritizing that, and to be more in allowance, make a choice for the allowance of the feelings, and putting in that with love other to the side, because the connections that we seek or the resolve that we want to ascertain is never going to come from this. It always comes from the space of us creating more freedom internally, so that all of a sudden our thinking also has more options. It has more availability. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with you, because there is in each moment there a choice of making us available and showing up for ourselves more and more vulnerably. And that starts with our will, that we're just willing for that, that we're, because the real question is, how much longer do we want to work on ourselves in a private environment, but then when we step out into the real world, we're back into we're wearing some sort of format that is culturally conditioned appropriate behavior. But if those appropriate behaviors haven't actually ever been verified, they haven't necessarily ever been questioned. Nobody ever went up to somebody and said, so I'm sitting here 10 meters away from you, and I'm really pre-thinking that you have a lot of thoughts about me, and I don't want to feel like that. So I actually was feeling really emotional earlier on, and I didn't feel to express that. Would you be okay if I just expressed my emotions over there? The person would be like, bro, if you need to feel something, you need to feel something. And it's we operate on belief systems and ideas that are all stemming from some level of unresolved trauma. And we don't necessarily get to challenge those beliefs unless we bring our will into the picture. And we say, well, I don't know what it will look like if I'm going to be real with myself in environments where I normally wouldn't be comfortable to do that because it's inappropriate or it's not welcomed, or that's just not how people show up. But I know that it's important for me to gain more freedom because I have a legacy to leave. I have love to emit. I have a role and a function to show up in as a grandmother to my own grandchildren. Whatever it is that we feel that is actually calling us from within, we need to become willing to create space for that, and particularly in the outer world. And as we do that, as we bring up the courage to step into that brave new life, we then get an opportunity to actually challenge beliefs or programs about other that we then can pull into question. And I've done that on so many occasions for myself, and it's been totally the opposite of what I was believing was actually happening. And that was just again and again and again happening. And I was like, it's just simply not true that people have these thoughts that something is inappropriate. That's me thinking that something is inappropriate. And that's why I am stopping myself from feeling me. And yet with that, I am going in against my nature, and I'm really not serving anyone. I'm not serving those people. I'm not being an authentic expression of myself. If we as humans are all wired to be authentic and unique and real, then being authentic and real with our feelings as they emerge and arise would also be natural. It seems that most of us just don't have the freedom around that. And this is what this work is to be willing to step into an uncomfortable space. But really, once we recognize that our feelings are happening inside of our bodies, and we can cherish those feelings, we can allow them, we are fully in control of them in the sense of how much allowance we bring to them, we can sense that all of the feelings that are happening in this body are safe to happen. It's okay. And that's really maybe the biggest takeaway, is to really start telling yourself it's okay. Feelings are okay. Yeah, but it's inappropriate. Yeah, but that's okay. Because it feels real, and it is real. And when we do that, we start expanding the terrain in which we actually get to express, but also the terrain in which we actually get to live. And that's really something that I really want to impart to you as something to really pick up on, to really explore. And maybe it brings up uncomfortability. Maybe it brings up feelings like, oh, wow, well, that's great. Because if it brings up all sorts of uncomfortability, then that's the first point to start with. That's the first program around other that recites that. It says, oh, no, we can't do that. And she has a name. The program carrier of, oh, we can't do these things. She's been sitting there for a very long time. And she brings up that resistance to be more freedom, to be more love in the world with others around. She brings up that resistance because she got repressed in that so early on. And this is definitely something that I'd like to encourage you to take to heart and to sit with and be with, because once that little girl, or sometimes this little boy, it has its own form, it has its own nature. Once that part is found and brought home and asked, what is its name? What was the primary experience? What was around that? How would she like to change that entire story? Would she like to come home? Would she like to actually let go of all of that because you're here now with her? That original innocence is trapped in most of us. And we all have an opportunity by simply sometimes exploring, how would it be if I just become emotionally free around people that I don't even know? Ooh, well, that brings up a lot of stuff. Great. Go into that then, so that something inside can be found. And through the meditation practice that I'm going to be sharing with you in the follow-up to this, there will be opportunity to really recognize that there is a way to feel an uncomfortable feeling, a sort of a program of I'm feeling that I'm restricted in my freedom right here, to then be able to make use of that restrictive feeling and actually go in and see where did that come from? How did that get planted? And who, at the essence, as a younger version of yourself, is really sitting there? Who is that is really retained in that narrative of constricted feelings around being fully emotionally free. Because once that gets unlocked, once that part becomes freed, all of a sudden what it was holding on against and saying as, oh, we can't do that, or we can't do that, well, that's inappropriate, or we shouldn't be doing like this, all these rules, they no longer perform a function with purpose, because their only purposeful function was that all these rules about other were only speaking from one singular place and one singular voice, which was this little being inside that we each have an opportunity to bring home, to find, to retrieve, and to relate with. It's a big part of our, what I call cult programming, where humans are, because of their own fears of really expressing what is alive and real for them, they don't show up in that way, so other people don't show up in that way. And then when people do show up in that free way, then the people that are witnessing that sometimes get a little bit affected, especially when it's in a family constellation. And they'll try and shut it down, but really what they're trying to shut down is their own feelings that they are uncomfortable with. And it's such a trip to recognize that as a westernized society, we've so conditioned each other. It's not that there was one puppet master at the top that said, oh, this is how we're going to do this. This is all us colluding with each other. But most people are doing it entirely unconsciously. They don't even know that they're colluding. They're just basing their navigation and their orientations on what they have seen other people do. Yeah. And of course, you would have seen some of the cute experiments that have been done around human behavior and how gullible and prone we are to just doing it how everybody else does it. So if nobody else is crying in public, well, I shouldn't be crying in public. If nobody else is dancing freely or really brightly smiling and just feeling like, wow, the world is my oyster. Well, if everybody's depressed around us, we have a tendency as human beings to kind of follow the herd. And really what that does in unconscious cult programming, it really just restricts us so much from what is really here available to us. And that is like the difference between being authentic and being real, for me, are almost two different worlds. You know, we can feel that we are being authentic in how we show up, but when we ask the more simpler language question, are you being really real with what's really going on for you? Well, then most times we could say, no, I'm actually not being really real with what's really going on for me because of other. And so then authenticity also becomes a word that we love and we like, and we do our best to be very authentic. But if authentic was placed in the construct still of societal framework or other, you know, that our authentic expression is still unconsciously held in place by how society around us operates, well, then as you say, we're not necessarily authentic, really. And I like to really place it in a different framework where it's asking yourself, are you being really real with what's really going on for you? And if not, what do you feel is holding you back? And that allows us to very quickly start gravitating towards what does sit there inside and how did that end up there?